In the 1800s, a growing community of immigrants from France called Northeast Pennsylvania home, and they brought with them the best in French cuisine. This led to world-renowned establishments like the Hotel and Hotel Schanno. The Hotel has been restored to its former splendor with a number of tasteful updates to the building and technology. But we'll save that tale for another time. This is the story of the rise and fall of the Hotel Schanno. The Schanno family lived in Alsace, France for hundreds of years. But in the French-Persian War of 1870, Germany took Alsace from France, and Émile Schanno lost everything he owned. Not wanting his sons to serve in the German army, he brought his family to America in 1876 and settled in Dingman's Ferry. A few years later, Émile purchased a small hotel near Milford and operated the business until his passing in 1883. His children, Paul, Charles, Joe, and Anna, continued to run the business. The main business at the time focused on summer boarders who left the sweltering cities in the East Coast and traveled to the hotels and boarding houses of the Pocono Mountains for the cooler temperatures and fresh air. The Schanno family had everything they needed to run the hotel on their 25-acre property located a short distance from Raymond's Kill Falls. During the winter, they harvested ice from a pond on the property, and in the summer, planted an excellent garden to grow their own food. They also raised their own livestock to provide eggs and meat for the restaurant. It didn't take long for the fine reputation of the hotel and its food to spread throughout the East Coast, resulting in it being nicknamed the Little Delmonico after the famed New York City eatery. Activities at the hotel included bathing, boating, hiking, relaxation, and of course, eating. The trout fishing in the nearby brook was legendary, and local papers carried stories of record catches by Hotel Schanno guests. Riding wheels and bicycles gained popularity during this time, and on one summer day in 1896, over 600 bicycles, or wheelmen as they were often referred to, passed through Milford bound for nearby hotels and destinations. Coach parties were another favorite pastime in the Poconos. Large coaches with room for a number of people and drawn by 4 horses would travel from towns to various hotels and attractions for dinner and drinks. Hay or straw rides were also popular during the fall harvest. At the end of the summer, boarders would return to the cities, and hunters would then flock to the boarding houses for deer and bear hunting season. Local game was a part of the excellent menu found at the Hotel Schanno. During the winter in the off-season, the Schanno family lived on the property, and guests would drop by for holidays, events, and special dinners. Horse-drawn sleigh or bobsled parties would travel from local towns to Dingman's Ferry. The most prosperous period for the Schanno Hotel reigned from 1890 until 1920. During this time, there were several rounds of renovations and improvements. In 1897, a 1,000 square foot addition was added to the structure to house a new kitchen. The improvements doubled the number of guests the hotel could accommodate to around 75, and made the hotel one of the best appointed summer resorts in Northeastern Pennsylvania. A New York Times article predicted that the summer of 1903 would be the Hotel Schanno's best season to date. In October of 1903, the Delaware River flooded and the Hotel Schanno was underwater up to the porch roof. In December of 1903, the hotel was sold to Louis Bedell, and despite the flood damage, the hotel was restored and opened for the 1904 season. By the end of 1905, the hotel was back in the Schanno family, run by Albert and Mary Louise Cotterill, the sister of Paul Schanno. In the early 1900s, baseball was popular, and Albert was the captain of the local team, called the New York and Pennsylvania Giants. He also installed an acetylene plant and a heating apparatus to the hotel, so it could remain open year-round, making it the best winter-equipped resort in the country. The hotel was full over the winter season. The next few years held many challenges for the family. In 1908, a forest fire raged near the property. Severe storms passed through the area causing damage, and Paul Schanno died of pneumonia in 1910. 11 years earlier, in April of 1899, Paul's infant son also died of pneumonia at the Hotel Schanno. After Paul's death, ownership of the hotel changed to Charles and Anna, Paul's brother and sister. Business continued to be strong until the United States joined World War I and Prohibition went into effect in the 1920s. Prohibition resulted in the slackening of business throughout the Pocono Mountains. But for those in the know, there were several establishments that continued to serve alcohol in the Poconos, making them a welcome oasis in a dry land. It was during this time that the airship Los Angeles flew over Pike County and was visible by the guests of the hotel. By this time, many of the Schanno family were involved in running other hotels in the area, like the Riverside Hotel, Milford Inn, and the Maple Grove House in Bushkill, with Leo in charge of the Hotel Schanno. When Gifford Pinchot was elected governor of Pennsylvania and planning to return to Gray Towers in Milford to reside, he was under criticism for the widespread disregard for prohibition in the Pocono Mountains. As a result, he vowed to make the area the driest spot in Pennsylvania. On August 2, 1923, 14 state police infiltrated the Milford area undercover, dressed as tourists. They visited all the local hotels and restaurants, attempting to order alcoholic drinks such as dry martinis and gin rickeys. As a result of this raid, Leon Schanno, proprietor of the Schanno Hotel, was one of 4 business owners arrested and held on $1,000 bail for selling liquor and illegally having it in his possession. Before the raid, the Hotel Schanno was the favorite restaurant of the previous governor, and many prominent Republicans and Democrats could always be found in attendance. The Great Depression of the 1930s continued to hurt business, even after the repeal of Prohibition. In 1933, Joe Schanno dies at the Schanno House, and his brother Leon passes away a few years later. The hotel then passes to Paul Schanno's daughter, Madeline, and her husband Charles Goldenson. For over 20 years and a Second World War, they continued to run the business until 1955, although it never recovered its former glory. In the 1940s, local papers carried classified ads for items being sold from the hotel, including cars, refrigerators, fur coats, and even the steel bridge at the hotel. Many factors changed the way Americans vacationed following World War II. Air conditioning technology, widespread ownership of cars, changes to railroads, disappearance of the light rail, and air travel all changed when and where people traveled, and exotic destinations became more accessible. The Great Flood of 1955 wreaked havoc along the Delaware River, washing out roads, destroying bridges, as well as doing millions of dollars of property damage. And once again, the Schanno house was underwater. Following the flood, Madeline sold the business to Vincent Manna, just as the Pocono Mountains was becoming recognized as the honeymoon capital of the world, and the Hotel Schanno shifted its business to focus on honeymoons and weddings. When the honeymoon was over and the attraction to the Poconos faded, the hotel's business shifted to meetings, events, and celebrations. And in 1961, Manna dies at the hotel where he was spending the weekend. A few years later, in 1965, the Manna family sells the business to Larry and John Hoey, and they leased the hotel to Joe and Virginia Spandora, who renamed the hotel the Schanno House. In 1972, the hotel was acquired by the Army Corps of Engineers as a part of the Tox Island Dam. The entire area was to be flooded for a large hydroelectric dam project. Due to public outcry, the dam was never built, and the Army Corps continued to honor the Splendora's lease. They continued to run the hotel, and Joe Splendora used one of the large first-floor rooms for his artist studio. Eventually, the land became a part of the Delaware Water Gap National Park. The National Park Service continued to honor his lease under the condition that he would not rent rooms as they were considered unsafe. But they continued to rent rooms in order to keep their liquor license. And in 1984, the National Park Service shut down the business, and the building remained empty for the next 6 years. In 1990, the story of this grand hotel, a stone's throw from Raymond's Falls, came to an end as the empty structure was burned by arsonists. All that remains is a small stone pillar and the steel bridge leading to the property. You can still travel the McDade Trail in the Delaware Water Gap National Park and walk by the site of the Hotel Schanno, imagining over a century of history on the way to Raymond's Falls, right here in the Pocono Mountains.